Welcome to Mercenary Media. Stop chewing on your crayons, recruits, and pay attention. Out here, we deal in stories carved from steel, smoke, and battlefield scars. Tales of bounty hunters, ghosts from the Black Ops shadows, lost cities, and the monsters that walk between neon and ash. If you're here for something soft, you took a wrong turn. But if you want high-intensity storytelling, tactical world-building, and characters who survive on grit, instinct, and bad decisions, then fall in line. And one more thing. These videos may contain graphic descriptions of violence. Viewer discretion is advised. Now tighten your gear, square your stance. This transmission is live.
Avalon's reign had a way of finding every crack in a man, physical or otherwise. Tonight, it felt like it was testing my new ones. Node 7 was finally starting to look like a place I could operate from. Reinforced doors installed, armory lockers bolted into the sub-basement, med capsule humming quietly like a dormant threat waiting for permission to awake. The Ashline boys were upstairs arguing about where to put a second bunk frame, which meant they were getting comfortable. Too comfortable. Good. Comfort gave people routines. Routines made people predictable. I was tightening the neural interface on my armor collar when the power inside Node 7 flickered, once, then steady. Not an outage, a pulse. Short range, targeted. My hand drifted to my sidearm, automatically. Then the lights dimmed again, this time deliberately, and a woman's voice cut through the darkness, smooth as a scalpel. Relax, Mercer. If I meant you harm, you wouldn't have heard me. The pistol came up anyway. From the corner of the room, a soft glow bloomed, blue-white, subtle, forming the outline of a slim projection node the size of a coin. Someone had slipped it inside without tripping a single sensor. The hologram resolved into the figure of a woman. Not a full projection, just her upper silhouette. Clean lines, sharp profile, eyes that looked like they were studying me more than the room. "Who are you?" I asked. The projection smiled, not polite, not mocking, but something in between. A smile from someone who knew exactly what they were doing with it. Consider this a courtesy, a preview, a warning, if you prefer less flattering terms. Warning about what? About a woman who will be knocking on your door in 30 seconds. I scoffed. If someone gets within 30 feet of my property, I hear them long before they knock. Yes, she murmured. You do, which is why she's taking a different approach. Before I could ask what that meant, the projection blinked out, and a soft metallic click echoed from the roof. Footsteps. Controlled. Precise. Weight evenly distributed to avoid rattling the support beams. Someone was on my roof. Someone who knew how to walk like a wraith. The access hatch above the cargo bay snapped open with an efficiency that wasn't improvised. Whoever was coming in had studied Node 7's structure before setting foot near it. I aimed upward. A woman descended the ladder one rung at a time, boots gliding soundlessly. No weapon drawn, no panic, no hesitation. When she reached the floor, she stepped off the ladder like she already owned the space. That was the first thing I noticed. She didn't move like a civilian. She didn't move like a criminal. She moved like someone who used to be dangerous and never fully stopped. "Mr. Mercer," she said warmly. "Thank you for not shooting immediately. I was curious which way you'd lean." "Try me again, and we'll find out." She smiled. Not flattered, not threatened, just quietly amused. "My name is Selene Ward." It was the first time I'd heard that name, and yet it carried weight. I didn't lower the pistol. "How did you bypass my security grid?" "Easily," she said, as though commenting on weather. "Your roof sensors recalibrate once in every 90 seconds. That left me 81 seconds of opportunity. I only needed 12. "And the hologram?" "A decoy," she answered. "I don't like surprising armed men face to face until I understand which way their conscience leans. It leans toward the trigger." "Oh," she murmured, stepping closer, studying my posture. "I know." That was the second thing I noticed. She read body language like a language she wrote. "I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to hire you. Off the record, off the network, off anything that might require you to file a report." "No bounty?" I asked. "Not one you'll find on any board." "Then it's not a bounty." "It's a retrieval," she corrected softly. "A very quiet one, and you're one of the few men in Avalon capable of doing it without a blood trail." "What's the job?" She drifted past me, giving Node 7 a slow, assessing look. Not judgmental, just evaluating. "You've built yourself a nest. Functional. Subtle. Better than I expected." "You break in often?" "Only when I need to know whether someone is worth trusting." "And your verdict?" She met my eyes. "You are promising." I didn't like the way she said it. Not because it was flirtatious. It wasn't. Because it felt like she was appraising me the way I would appraise a target. "What's the job, Selene?" "A child was taken," she said, tone shifting. "A child wealthy. Someone careful. Someone who believes consequences are beneath them. The boy's father can't afford your rate, so I will." "Why?" Her gaze didn't waver. "Because some debts are worth paying." She slipped her hand into her coat and produced a thin data wafer which she placed on my table. "Bring him back," she said quietly, "and do not let anyone see you."
The wafer slid into a secured reader, isolated, shielded, no network bleed. I didn't trust anything attached to a job Selene Ward brought through my door. The interface lit immediately, loading clean schematics and precise annotations that didn't look like the work of someone pulling scraps off the street. Selene hadn't lied. This wasn't a bounty. This was intelligence. It was also thorough. Too thorough. East Bastion, 23rd floor. High-end corporate living suite disguised as a serviced apartment. The kind of place where the rich hid their mistakes and expected no one to look too closely. A child's photo sat in the file. 7 or 8 years old, dark hair, eyes too observant for his age. His wristband glowed faintly in the image, a medical ID marker. Something about that alone told me this wasn't a kidnapping out of anger or desperation. Someone had planned this. The building layout offered several entry routes, none clean. The lobby would expose me. Parking levels were monitored. Emergency stairs were alarmed. The rooftop had irregular patrols. But the external facade, that was a door no one ever considered. Newer towers had maintenance rails for automated cleaning drones, magnetic skiffs that crawled the windows like insects, polishing glass for people who believed clarity could be purchased. A maintenance hatch sat meters below Unit 23F. Unmonitored, neglected. Perfect. I gathered the tools for a silent climb: magnetic grip gloves,
soft boots, a compact cutter, and a pressure syringe for quick neutralization. No rifles, no concussive rounds. This wasn't a job for noise. The mule rolled out into Avalon's night with the low hum of a beast waiting for instruction. Rain misted across the windshield in thin lines, catching the neon and breaking it into fractured color. The city leaned over itself, steel on steel, glass reflecting lies back at anyone who bothered to look. People passed under the lights like shadows, pretending to have somewhere to be. I parked 4 blocks from the tower, looped the cameras, and walked. East Bastion smelled cleaner than the lower districts, but the falseness clung to everything, like the scent of a room scrubbed too many times to hide what happened inside it. The tower rose above the street in smooth, cold lines. Wealth loved to pretend it was safe. I approached the maintenance rail in an alley beside the building. The wind funneled between structures, carrying the vibration of distant traffic. A narrow ledge ran under the rail, just wide enough for a man who knew how to move. I put on the magnetic gloves, testing the grip with one hand, then stepped onto the ledge. The metal, damp from the rain, felt slick under my boots, but the magnets caught. A pull, a hold. I climbed. Glass reflected the city back at me, distorted, rippled by rain. The wind pressed hard against my back, but not enough to be dangerous. 12 meters up, the maintenance hatch waited, rusted along the edges. No recent tampering, no signs anyone had used it in years. Good. I pulled the microcutter from its pouch and pressed it to the seam. A faint vibration passed through my fingertips as the blade softened the metal without sparking. When the section loosened, I eased the hatch open and slipped inside. The crawl space beyond was little more than a forgotten gap, bare conduits, dust, and stale air. It led to a wider service shaft connected directly behind Unit 23F's bathroom mirror. The mirror's mounting clips sat loose from age, not sealed, not reinforced. A quiet entry. I pressed a hand against it and nudged. The mirror shifted, not loud, not enough to be noticed unless someone stood in the bathroom listening for ghosts. I slid through and lowered myself onto tile. A luxury bathroom greeted me. Sterile marble, chrome fixtures, the faint smell of expensive soap. Light seeped under the door. Voices murmured beyond the wall. A purifier hummed from the living space. I moved to the doorframe and leaned just far enough to see. The first guard sat with his back towards the bathroom, scrolling through a hollow screen, bored, comfortable, unaware his shift had just ended. I stepped behind him, hooked his arm, and drew him backward into the bathroom before he could react. His breath caught as he hit the counter, then faded into unconsciousness. The second guard paced lazily, circling the kitchen island. His eyes drifted to the windows, to the walls, to the floor, everywhere except where danger actually stood. When he passed the hall with his back exposed, I moved. A quick step, a shift of weight, and his body fell silently against mine before easing to the floor. 2 down. The third was unaccounted for. The closed bedroom door glowed with soft light beneath it. Something shifted inside. Fabric sliding across sheets. Someone waking. Someone waiting. I turned the knob slowly. The latch gave without resistance. Inside, the room was neat, sterile, suffocating in its order. Toys arranged in the corner, a blanket draped carefully across the bed, and a man, mid-30s, armor half unfastened, sat on the mattress with his head in his hands. He lifted his face when he sensed me. For a moment, only silence stretched between us. Then his hand darted for the pistol at his side. He wasn't fast enough. I caught his wrist, pressed him back, and eased the weapon out of reach.
He struggled, but exhaustion dragged down every movement. His eyes flickered toward the bed. A child stirred beneath the blankets. "Don't take him," he whispered. "Please, not him." He wasn't afraid of me. He was afraid of what would happen if the boy left. I didn't come to harm him. I came to remove him from people who don't deserve him. They said he'd be safe here. They didn't tell me why he was taken. They didn't tell me anything. I just did my job. And your job ends here. He didn't fight when I released him. His shoulders sagged with resignation. I lifted the child gently into my arms. He blinked awake, confused, but too tired to cry. "You're safe," I murmured. He leaned into me instinctively. I carried him back to the bathroom, into the service shaft, and out into the night, descending the façade with careful steps, the city watching from its broken windows. When my boots hit the pavement, the mule waited in the shadows. I settled the child into the rear compartment and secured him with a blanket. His eyes fluttered once. Then sleep claimed him again. The drive to Selene's rendezvous point felt heavier than it should have. Not dangerous, weighted. And when I pulled behind the teahouse and carried the child through the back door, Selene was already there waiting, her expression unreadable, but softer than before. "Bring him in," she said. I did.
The teahouse glowed with warm light through fogged windows, a small refuge tucked between forgotten storefronts, a place that looked too gentle to belong in Avalon and too intentional to be an accident. Inside, the air smelled of honeyed steam and crushed herbs. The tables were pushed aside, chairs stacked neatly, leaving the room open except for a single bench near the wall. The kettle on the counter whispered with a soft, steady hiss, as if it had been waiting for us. Selene guided me toward the bench with a quiet gesture. The boy blinked awake in my arms, gaze drifting across the room. His breathing remained steady, but there was confusion beneath the calm. He didn't cry. He didn't panic. He simply watched, the way children watch when they've learned too early that loud reactions lead to consequences. Selene crouched in front of him. Her entire presence changed, not vulnerability, not softness, more like a precise shift into a different version of herself, controlled, gentle, accurate in her instincts. "Do you like tea?" she asked softly. The boy hesitated, then nodded once. She rose and poured a warm cup, not hot, steam curling gently from the rim. When she sat beside him, he accepted the cup with small fingers, lifting it slowly while keeping his eyes on her. "You're safe," she told him. He searched her expression with a seriousness far older than his years. "You are not a doctor." She nodded with a faint smile. "Are you like him?" He pointed at me without moving his hand too far. Selene and I exchanged a glance. "No," she answered. "He's much better at this." The boy seemed satisfied with that and took a small sip. Selene watched him in a way I hadn't seen from her before. Not affection, not pity. Something deeper. Recognition, maybe, or remembrance. When he finished a few slow sips, his eyes fluttered. The warmth in the room finally reached him, and the exhaustion he'd been fighting for hours pulled him gently toward sleep. As he settled on the bench, wrapped in the blanket, Selene stood and motioned me toward the back room. I followed. Behind the counter, past a hung curtain of worn fabric, the teahouse opened into a narrow supply room. The air felt different here, denser, quieter, as though the building itself was listening. "You did well," she said. "I'm not looking for approval." "You weren't getting any," she replied with a faint tilt of her head. "But
You should know the truth anyway. Truth about what? You kept him whole. She paused, searching for the right phrasing. Most people can extract a target. Very few can do it without leaving marks no one sees until years later. It wasn't praise. It wasn't sentiment. It was a measured observation offered without an agenda. Rhett wouldn't have sent me after this. No. Rhett chooses loud hunters. You're not loud. And you know that because? Her eyes met mine, unflinching, assessing. Because she'd studied me. Because she'd planned for me. Because she had reasons she wouldn't yet reveal. But she didn't deny it. There are qualities you don't recognize in yourself, but others notice. That's supposed to comfort me? No. It's supposed to inform you. Her tone shifted as she stepped back, leaning against a shelf stacked with jars of tea leaves. The boy will leave Avalon before dawn, a private route. You will not need to escort him. Someone I trust will take him out. And his father? He'll be notified soon. He'll meet his son outside the city, far from anyone who might care enough to track him. You trust this route? I built it, she replied simply. Something flickered across her expression then, small, subtle, gone as quickly as it appeared. A shadow of something personal, something buried deep beneath the discipline. You knew the father, I said softly. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. What did he do? I asked. Selene's jaw tightened. He refused to fold. A lot of men refuse. They usually end up in morgues. He refused the wrong people, she murmured. People who believe obedience is a birthright. She crossed the room, brushing past me with the faint scent of citrus and rain clinging to her coat. He didn't bend, so they took something he couldn't afford to lose. And you stepped in? Yes. Because you owed him? No. She had a nagging feeling that she knew what was coming. I knew what came next. Her whist device buzzed. She checked the screen, then exhaled. He needs to go, she said. I'll take him. Alone? I'm better at disappearing than anyone else, she said lightly. She walked past me again, brushing just close enough for warmth to pass between us. And Mercer? She paused, shifting the boy gently into her arms. You'll understand why tonight mattered when the city grows quieter. What does that mean? When Avalon gets quiet, it's only because someone important stopped breathing. She opened the back door, rain glistening on the frame. We're in this now. And she vanished into the night with the boy.
The rain swallowed her silhouette almost instantly. One moment, Selene was framed in the doorway, with the child resting against her shoulder. The next, the darkness folded around her and carried her away. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. Selene Ward wasn't the type to check whether someone was still watching her. She already knew. I stood in the teahouse doorway for several breaths, listening to the faint ringing of the bell overhead as it settled. The warmth inside clashed with the cold street outside, creating a thin veil of steam that drifted past my boots and vanished into the night. Rain pattered onto the alley stones, steady and unhurried. Avalon felt quieter than it should have. I stepped out under the awning and watched the streetlights flicker across the wet pavement. Traffic was light, and the parts of the city that feigned respectability had already retreated behind closed blinds and reinforced doors. The night belonged to people like me, and people like whoever Selene was running from. Except she wasn't running. She was moving with purpose, and that purpose had just intersected with mine. The mule waited where I left it, its matte frame glistening in the downpour. I opened the rear door to check the blanket in the back seat. A habit, nothing more. The boy's faint warmth still lingered on the fabric. I brushed my hand across it, then closed the door and circled around to the driver's seat. When I slid inside, the cab lights dimmed automatically, leaving the console's soft glow to illuminate the interior. The hum of the engine filled the silence, steady and dependable. As I rested my hands on the wheel, something else settled in behind my ribs. Not fear, not dread, recognition. I'd taken jobs that led into bad neighborhoods, gunfights, corporate backroom politics, and the occasional underworld mistake that needed fixing. But tonight felt different. The air carried a weight I couldn't ignore, a pressure that came from the moment you stepped too close to a line that had been drawn long before you were born. Selene's last words replayed in my head. We're in this now. Not you. Not I. We. It wasn't a partnership. Not yet. But it wasn't a warning either. It was an acknowledgement. A rare one. I leaned back in the seat and let the engine idle while I watched the rain streak across the windshield. The wipers ticked once, clearing a path through the distortion. Street lamps cast pale halos across the road, shimmering on the surface water. Somewhere out there, Selene was disappearing into the parts of Avalon only she understood, with the boy, with her secrets, with answers I didn't know to ask for yet. I exhaled slowly and shifted the mule into gear. As the tires rolled over the slick pavement, the city stretched open before me, its shadows hiding more than they revealed. Tonight had been a job, but it wasn't ending like one. Jobs ended with payouts, reports, quiet nights, and the next contract waiting. This ended with questions, with a child's face in the dark, with a woman who walked into my life through a roof hatch like she'd done it 1,000 times before, and with a feeling in the back of my mind whispering that Avalon had just opened a door I wasn't meant to ignore. The rain thickened as I drove, tapping against the glass in uneven rhythms. The street blocks passed by, rusted iron, broken signs, flickering neon fighting to stay alive. Above them the corporate towers loomed like indifferent giants, watching the city drown. By the time Node 7 came into view, the night had deepened into a heavy, motionless blanket. The building's reinforced exterior looked almost welcoming in the rain. The Ashline boys had gone to sleep. Their lights were off upstairs. The quiet seeped into every crack of the yard. I stepped out of the mule and let the mist settle against my jacket. The air tasted like metal and memory. Inside, the building was still. The power couplings hummed softly. The med capsule downstairs pulsed faintly. My footsteps echoed just enough to remind me this place was becoming something like a home. Unwanted, unexpected, but real. I set my gear down, lowered myself onto the cot, and let the silence settle. The job was done. The boy was safe. But the night wasn't finished with me. Selene's projection, her walk across my roof, her infiltration profile, her intelligence packet, her familiarity with things she shouldn't know. It all pointed in one direction. She wasn't who she claimed to be, and whoever she really was, she'd chosen me for a reason.
All right, recruits, that's the end of this operation. If you made it this far, congratulations. Most don't. But your mission isn't over yet. As part of your civic duty, and to keep this outfit running, you will now hit the like button. Not later, not when you remember, now. And if you haven't subscribed yet, well, that's desertion. Lock it in, subscribe, and stay in formation so you don't miss the next deployment. This is Mercenary Media, where stories bleed, shadows move, and legends are forged in fire and neon. Dismissed.